Okay, everybody. I thought I would take this opportunity today, this week, to do another demo um, for this museum card project that we're working on. So far, I've seen some really cool stuff that's being developed, and there were some questions that some people had about how to do certain things, and I hope to address that in this short video. Okay, so I think since the last time I did a demo, it was mod sort of op art. This time we're going to go with psychedelic. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and create new. I'm in Adobe Illustrator here, so let's create new. And the size is 7 by 9, so let's go ahead and the last one I went with 9 inches tall and 7 wide, so I think I'm going to go the other way this time. So I'll go ahead and click on the 7 by 9. That was the last time that I did it. You can see the custom size here. But I'll just change the orientation. Remember that when you use Adobe Illustrator, it will remember some of the previous items that you've created. In this case, you can see your recent items. There's 3 of them. 2 of them are letter size, one's not, and the one that's not is the one that we need. So it's 7 by 9 inches. We're doing landscape, and we'll just go ahead and create. That should be the right setting. I'm going to take it a moment. La-di-da, anytime now. Okay, so there is our basic card. It's still on the last setting that I used, which is typography, as far as the workspace is concerned. And I think that will probably work. Um, yeah, I think that'll probably work for what I need this time. I am going to bring up my rulers here. I always like to have my rulers showing, so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And I'm also I want to set in my um, spiral, the Fibonacci spiral. So I've got my layers here. This is my basic layer here. I want to think about starting to stack some stuff up. So let's go ahead and file, open, and let's go ahead and got to find find my thing. I think I have it on my disk right here, Art 135, and let's see. Fibonacci Spiral Vector AI. Okay, you guys are familiar with this thing. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab this thing right there, and then edit, copy, and then I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here, and we'll just paste it. Paste. Okay. Now, while I have it still selected, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Again, you know, this Fibonacci spiral thing is just sort of a guideline for finding, you know, visual your focal points in a visual manner. You can turn it around, so like that, and have the focal point be right here, or whatever. It's you can turn it any way you want. In this case, I'm gonna go with this right here, where my focal point is going to be more toward the bottom, and that's where I'll probably have the info for when and where the thing is. Okay. All right. So I've got that on layer 1. Okay. And what I'm going to do with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm probably going to knock the opacity down a little bit. So I need to hide some of this stuff. We got too much stuff going on here. It's making it hard to see what I need. But you can collapse your different palettes as you need. In this case, though, what I want to do is click on my transparency while that is still selected and take this down so it's not quite as obvious. Now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding a background to this. Okay, so So I want to keep in mind where this thing is, where my focal point is going to be. Um, so it's still, somewhat visible, not super visible. And now that I have that taken down a little bit as far as opacity is concerned, I'm going to go ahead and lock that in place. I'm going to lock that selection so I don't grab it by mistake later on. Okay, I'm going to click back on my layers palette, and now I'm going to create a new layer. Okay, layer 2. Actually, this one I'm going to label that spiral before I go any further, so I know what it is. I want to label my layers as much as I can. Okay, now on this layer, I want to add some kind of a background. Okay, I had a student say that she wasn't sure how to add a background. Actually, all a background is in this kind of situation is just a graphic that you have behind everything else. So let's go ahead and open up a background file. Now I had went through and found some appropriate sort of hippie looking stuff. Um, just online. Now the stuff that I'm using here today is stuff that I have found. Yeah, there we go. That I found online at stock imagery places. Okay, Getty Images, Unsplash, things like that. You can find artwork, and that will work. So you don't have to recreate the wheel here. This thing right here, I had already. It was a JPEG, and I made it into a vector graphic by using the Live Trace tool. Okay, so now it's a vector graphic. It's ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that, edit, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go ahead and let's see, paste it. It's pretty big, but that's okay. I'm going to actually make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to cut away what I don't need. Okay. Now, one of the things I'm very aware of here is, I'm going to move this over a second, my focal point. My focal point's right here, so I think that's where I want the mandala center. Okay, so I'm going to make this a bit smaller so I don't have to get rid of as much. But I want to keep it large enough that the mandala is off-center and is going to be about where I want my main text to be. So I'm kind of playing around with the size here. You have to play around these things to kind of get what you want. Now I'm holding down my shift key as I change the size as well because I don't want to make this kind of squishy. And when I say squishy, I mean, sort of elliptical shape. I want to keep the sort of round shape to it. Okay, now, while this is still selected, let's see if it's going to let me do this. Grab my my eraser tool and holding down my shift key while I erase through that. Okay, good. That worked. Let's see. And there's my other. So I'm going to hold down my shift key. What I'm doing is I'm just cutting a line through this stuff so I can get rid of the extra stuff I don't need. Whoops, didn't hold down my shift key that time. So let's undo that eraser line there. We'll go back over here. Let's see. Still didn't register, so let's undo that. You have to make sure that when you hold down your shift key, when you do an erase job, that you have it held down beforehand. Otherwise, it'll just make a crooked sort of line. Okay, now I should be able to grab portions of this and delete. So if you cut into a graphic, it'll allow you to get rid of what you don't want. You just gotta create a a direct select box around the parts that you don't want following the eraser line that you made. Delete. Okay, so now my background graphic is uh, centered the way I want, off center, I guess you'd say, and it's pretty much ready to go. Okay, now this is way too bold for what I need. Okay, so I'm going to take the opacity down quite a bit on this as well. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and rename this. We'll just call this mandala. Okay, so that's that layer. And then go ahead and nest that, and we'll take this transparency down as well. Take it down to, let's see, about there. That's a little too light. But you can see what it is that I have kind of lined up here. Okay, so you can see my focal point right here, surrounded by my mandala design. Okay, and I think what I need to do though is I think I might need to add an additional bit of color in the background behind this thing. So, don't be afraid to layer your artwork to get what you want. Okay, so in this case, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my layers here, and first off, let's go ahead and I'm going to before I go any further, I'm going to unlock all, and I'm going to grab my spiral. Actually, first I'm going to there we go, and I'm going to move this out of the way. All right, now that I have my focal point sort of signified by my mandala, I don't really need to have that in there. I've been doing this a long time anyway, so I kind of know what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and this layer here with a spiral on it, I don't know that I necessarily need it. I think what I might do is just kind of rename this as a background color. And what I'm going to do while I'm here is I'm going to go ahead and kind of beef up this. This is a little on the light side. I'm going to go ahead and beef up my my basic color here by adding a color block behind this. So I'm on my background layer here. I'm going to deselect my mandala there, and I'm just going to create. I'm going to use my rectangle tool here, and let's see. Let's go ahead and pick a color. I'll have to probably adjust it later, but if I think I'll try this this magenta here and see how that looks behind the mandala. Okay, so I'm going to bring back my layers here. I'm going to add a square right here. I'm going all the way to my bleed line. There. Now that's got kind of a nice sort of pink to it. Okay, it's kind of purplish feel, and it's affecting the color of the mandala design. Okay, so it's all got sort of some pinks going on and all of that. So that kind of works. I kind of like that. And now if I want to, I can go back to this mandala here. Okay, I'm back on that layer. Grab that, and I can even take the opacity down further if I want to make it a lot more subtle. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm kind of liking that. Okay. Okay, so we've got our basic background going on here. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to start adding some stuff. Okay, now I think in this case what I might do is I might add a some sort of a figure or something over here. Like I said, I'd gone to some online sources and found some iconic 60s stuff. Now we're talking psychedelic stuff here. So I think I'm going to go with Jimi Hendrix. This is just a standard issue um, photo from an online source. Pretty well-known photograph. Okay, and but we're going to make this into a vector graphic the same way we did that model Peggy in the last demo. So I'm going to grab this guy. Before I go any further, I'm going to just grab him, and I'm going to copy that, and then go back to my design here. Bring up my my layers palette again, and I'm going to add a new layer, and we're going to call this Jimmy. Okay, and then we are going to go ahead and paste that. Okay, now the size is pretty decent. It's pretty close. We might have to adjust it a little bit. I should probably lock my mandala in background before I go too much further. So let's go ahead and grab the mandala, object, lock, selection. Okay, and my background, grab that, object, lock, selection. Okay, now those are all locked. Now with Jimmy here, Jimi Hendrix, we've got it's a little on the big side right now, so we're going to want to make that a little bit smaller. And we've got this white background. Okay, the white background is kind of a problem. Okay, so we're going to need to do something about that. I'm making him smaller here so I can have the text go above, and notice where his eyes are going. Okay, his eyes are aimed right at this mandala right here. So you want to think about that. You want to think about the different objects within your artwork and how they can direct the viewer's eye wherever you want. Okay, now we need to make this into a piece of artwork. Really easy to do. While it's still selected here, I'm going to go ahead and click on Image Trace. Okay, now trying to think of the best way to do this. I think since this is a black and white photograph, I can just hit Basic Image Trace and it should do what I want. Like that. That's pretty cool. Okay, that works pretty well. And you can still see where his eyes are directed. All right, so what I'm going to do next is while it's still selected, I'm going to click on Expand. And what that does is that creates all the plot points and lines to create the art that make up the artwork. And that way too, I can take my direct select tool now and get rid of the white. Okay, so, and when I say get rid of the white, I mean all of it. So I'm going through here and I'm getting rid of the extraneous stuff that I don't need, because I just want the black. Okay, the personal preference here. So the direct select tool actually is really great for doing really really finite work. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm grabbing each one of these little parts and hitting delete usually twice to make the little white bits disappear so I can see the mandala right through it. Now what I'll probably wind up doing as well, cancel that, is changing the color of this silhouette. I don't know if I want it to be black necessarily. So once I get these little parts gotten rid of, and this is the kind of stuff that when you're doing vector graphics takes a bit of work. when you create vector artwork, a lot of times little weird things are created, like these white bits that I don't want. I still think the crinkly little wrinkles look pretty cool, so I'm not just going to fill them in with black. I could do that, but I'd rather just have them gone so it kind of still has that vector graphic artwork feel. Again, personal preference. Everybody's got their own way of doing stuff. I know what I like. I'm a big fan of progressive rock and psychedelic music and all that kind of stuff. So this kind of thing is just right up my alley. All right, I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. All right, got a couple more spots I need to take care of. Not much. Again, right here, delete, 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 delete. Okay, that should be about all of it. Command 0. Actually, zoom out a little bit more. Okay. Now, I'm going to use my regular select tool and position him right where I need him, right on the bleed there. Okay. And, yeah, let's try something different with him. Let's experiment with a little bit of color here. We can experiment. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Let's see how it looks like that. Wow, that really stands out. That's almost a little too much. There we go. That's kind of cool. Okay, or oh, here's an idea. We could try a gradient. Now, if you want to change up your gradient, it's not really hard to do. In this case, your gradient's just your basic black and white. If you click on your gradient selector over here, okay, you can select different colors. So in this case, we can go with green to white. That looks pretty cool. Or let's try something else here. Green to purple. Oh, I kind of like that. Because what it's doing is going from the purple of, you know, the background color to kind of a green. That's fairly trippy. I kind of like that. Okay, so I think that's working right there. Now I got to start adding some text. Okay, now oh, and before I go any further, I should probably lock this guy up. So I'm going to go ahead and select him. Go back to my layers palette and make sure that everything's all set there. And I'll just go ahead and lock him as well. All right. So now we've got some pretty cool stuff going on. I might go ahead and maybe take this mandala opacity down just a little bit. You know, I'm not sure if it's going to get too busy. I might do that. Or, you know, another thing I might do too is I might shift Jimmy over a little bit. You know, not really sure on that yet. I need to play around with the text a little bit to figure that out. But before I go any further, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit save. I haven't done that yet, and it's a good idea to save and save often. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Save As. And let's see, make sure we're in the Art 135 folder. Yep. We'll call this Museum Card Jimmy. And we got a few different museum cards in there that are, you know, listed as 1, 2, and 3. So naming this one as Jimmy would probably be a little more identifiable. Okay, so we got that saved now, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make some adjustments, I think, before I add any more stuff to this. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock all, and I'm going to grab Jimmy first, and I'm going to move him over here a little bit, and maybe make him a little bit bigger. I want him to kind of run off. Not everything has to be centered you know, exactly in artwork. Okay, and while that is, so that's kind of off center. I think what I'm going to do while he's still selected, I'm going to move this slightly so that it's a little more purple. You can see here that while it's selected, I can go ahead and move the sliders and adjust where I want the purple. So I want a bit more purple since I moved him over with just the green edge. Okay. So, okay, that's working pretty well. Now I need to cut off some of this extra stuff here. Not a big deal. I'm just going to use that eraser tool again. But first, I'm going to grab my mandala, okay, and I'm going to lock that back up just so I don't mistakenly erase that away. I don't want to erase away something that's important. I'm going to do the same thing with the background color. So I'm going to lock that. So the only thing that's unlocked right now is Jimmy. All right, so I'm going to take my tool here, my eraser tool. I'll hold on my shift key, whoop, and make a straight line going down, just like that. And then use my direct select tool to draw a marquee around it and get rid of the extra. Okay. Now, that's working. I'm kind of digging that. Move them over just slightly. And again, if you notice too that if you want to change things as far as like the the gradient is concerned. Oh, if you can't find your gradient tools and things like that, just go up to your window selection. That's where you can find everything and make it available. Okay, so just making a minor adjustment. Okay, there we go. Now back to this. Let's bring this up again. Bring up this mandala, and I am going to unlock that, and I am going to take this down just a little bit. So that's selected. Go ahead and grab my transparency tool and take it down just a little bit further. There we go. Now Jimi Hendrix is really standing out. I like that. Okay. Now let's add some text to this thing. I had already went ahead and copied from the assignment sheet the text that we needed. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my text tool here. Oh, wait, before I do that, you know what? Let's go ahead and lock this stuff up. Actually, I'm going to do a, this is the quickest way to do it. I'm going to do a select all and lock. Okay, everything is locked now. Okay, that's a quick way to do it. If you want to make sure that everything is locked, just do select all, and it'll let you lock everything up. Okay, now I don't have to worry about messing up my artwork when I start putting the text in. So I'm going to click on my text tool, click once, got my lorem ipsum, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and, whoa, that ain't right. Okay, never mind that. Let's undo. That was, wow, I don't know where that stuff came from. Undo paste. Well, that's the kind of stuff that happens when you're working digitally. Okay, so let's double check that. Okay, copy that. Whoops. All right, let's try that again. Okay. There we go. That's what I was trying to do. Now, as you've seen in my previous demos, a lot of times I like to just take the actual copy that we need, and when I say copy, I mean the text, and just kind of paste it all at once so I know that I have all the correct information right there. Now let me say right here that when you have text that is supposed to be on the card, okay, use that text and that text only. Do not add your own embellishments to the text, okay? This thing should say, you know, Museum of Contemporary Art, or the 1960s, Pop Psychedelic Art, January 3rd through April 10th, 2019. That's it, okay? So, don't add anything more to it. Don't put in the word groovy or whatever, because that's not what's asked for. I'm telling you this right now because if you go into advertising, the person that does the copywriting will be very particular and will only want the copy that he or she wrote in there. Okay? All right. So, back to this. I'm going to go ahead and grab Art of the 1960s, I think. We're talking hierarchy stuff, so I'm going to copy just that part. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my text tool again. But before I go any further with my text tool, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a font that I had found earlier that I want to use for this. So I found some interesting fonts. Shagadelic is pretty cool. I think that's the one I might use. If not, I've got another one too called Keep On Truckin', which is very, it's a little easier to read than Shagadelic. So I'll try one and see if that doesn't work and then try the other. So at my text tool, I'm going to hit that, and then I'm going to go ahead while that's still selected, and while that's still selected, well, look at that. It swapped out my the font. Doesn't always do that, but it's a recent font now, so I can just click that. Okay, so there's my Art of the 1960s, which is pretty cool. I kind of like that. Oh, you know what? I need to object arrange, bring to front. Oh, it's not letting me do it. Okay. Well, let's do it this way then. I should have done this anyway. Let's see. I'm going to grab this while still selected. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'm going to add a new layer. I should have done this anyway. Text. There. Okay. And now, paste. All right. Now my text is on my text layer. I should have done that to begin with, but I didn't because I wasn't thinking. Okay. Now that's pretty cool. I don't know if I want to stack it or what I want to do with it. I'm not wild about it being black. I don't know if that works or not. Another thing I'm going to do too is I think because we're going psychedelic here, I want to have a little arc to it. So I'm going to be using the arc tool right here with using an envelope. But first I need to figure out what color I want to go with. Let's see. I guess we can just use our swatches here while it's still selected, and let's try. No. Oh, yeah. I need to actually. I need to do something a little more creative with this. I thought about using a gradient, but I think that's a little too much. We got a lot of crazy colors going on through here. We got a gradient here, we've got artwork here. To really make it stand out, I think what I need to do is just have it white. Just have the text be white. Now, a lot of times, you know, you just have to kind of play around and see what works. So in this case, we've got the text that's in white. That way too, I can make it, you know, nice and big. Okay, and it still stands out. Another thing I can do too to make it really pop is I could add some effects like well, if you go to stylize, I can add like a drop shadow. Okay, if I click on drop shadow, and that was under effects, um, I can adjust the drop shadow. In this case, because the artwork is very bold and there's no gradients, I don't want a gradient drop shadow. It would have to be a sharp black shadow with no gradation at all. So I'm going to click on preview right now, and then it's going to give me um, the very fuzzy sort of thing that I don't want. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to change the blur. Okay, so I'm going to knock that down to 0, and then I'm also going to take the opacity. I'm going to knock that all the way up to 100%. So now it is solid black, okay, and just what we want. Now I can also adjust where the offset is, okay. The default's not too bad, okay. Also, if I want to, I could change the color, you know, like that. Okay, that kind of goes with the background a little bit, but it's a little too hard to see over here. So I'm going to go ahead and just switch that back to black and call it good. And now let's go ahead and let's apply an envelope. Okay, the envelope is what arcs your text. So let's go ahead and make with warp. Come on, there we go. Didn't want to come on. Okay, so when you've got your warp options, this is what comes up. The default is arc, okay, and then you've got other choices here. You've got arc upper, arc lower, arch, bulge, shell, lower shell, upper, flag. For this, let's try flag and see what that does. Now the initial setting is probably going to be pretty wild. The bend's at 50%. That's not too bad. Actually, I thought it was going to be a little bit crazier. That's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and play with this a little bit. I'm playing with the horizontal to make it wider on one end and squishier on the other. The vertical will make it arc one way or the other. See, like that. Now the thing is about that though is you don't want to get too crazy with that sort of thing because it'll really make the stuff hard to read. You can also change your bend too if you want to go something like that. Actually, I think I like that more. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger. And I'm going to stretch it just a touch. That's not something you always want to do, but when you've got this kind of psychedelic stuff, it kind of works. Okay. Now, I want to make sure that I'm not getting too close to the edge here. Because remember, the color isn't the edge of my card. The color is the bleed. So, you want to make sure you're not too close to the edge. That works pretty well right there. Okay, art of the 1960s. And now let's go ahead and I'm going to grab this text here, Op Pop Psychedelic Art. Let's see, and copy that. And then all that's there. I know it seems like one step forward, two steps back. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to I got the words pop, op pop, and psychedelic art, which is what I need to have it say. And I think what I'm going to do, just to make it easier, is I'm going to see if I can sample this to get it to change. Nope, it only sampled part of it. Okay, that's not a big deal. So let's go ahead and let's undo the eyedropper. It's probably because of the envelope. The envelope sometimes will kind of cut things off that you can normally do. So let's go ahead and we'll change the font. Switch that up to a recent font, which is Keep On Truckin'. Let's go ahead and switch that so it's the same basic basic thing there with a white fill and a black stroke. I need to actually align the center, okay, and I also need to adjust the leading and the kerning on this because right now it's just too much. So let's go ahead and I've got to make this bigger so I can see what I'm doing here. All right, let's see. Do we have? Oops. Let's get rid of that. All right. Yeah, let's get rid of that extra line right there. Pop up, pop and psychedelic art. Okay. Now, I think that works pretty well. Make it a little bit bigger. And I don't know, I'm thinking maybe I need to stack these. So let's try that. Psychedelic art. Yeah, I think that works a little bit better. And then I can pop that right in there, right at the mandala. And let's go ahead and let's see. All right. I just double clicked on my text here so I could see exactly what stroke I had and all that. It's still a 1 point stroke. Good, that'll work. You can always do that too. Even if you have a an envelope applied to something, you can double click on your stuff and see the settings that you have. All right, all right, I'm going to click on my my character tool, and I'm going to use that to shore up my leading and kerning. That's the leading I was just doing. The kerning's not too bad, okay? So I don't think I need to adjust that. If the auto usually is pretty good, but you can click on optical and it'll kind of bring them in together a little bit, okay? I don't know, that might be a little too much, but it's not too bad. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and tilt this a little bit, make it just a touch bigger. Okay, and then I think I'm going to do the same, I'm going to apply the same sort of drop shadow to this, because right now this really pops and this does not as much. So I'm going to go ahead and apply drop shadow, and there we go, boom. Looking cool. All right. Now, all I need to do is put in the other basic info here, which is Museum of Contemporary Art, and January 3rd through April 10th, 2019. That's it's a made-up place, and it's a made-up date. So let's go ahead and grab Museum of Contemporary Art. And I'll copy that. And I'm just going to put this down here in the corner here. And oh, how'd that happen? Okay. I accidentally put that on a separate, on a weird layer. So I am going to undo that paste. And Undo that. Okay. Anyway, let's go ahead and make sure we're on the text layer. All right. Actually, at this point, I could make things a little bit easier on myself by just using this text right here. Using this text right here, object arrange, bring to front. Let's copy. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Make sure I'm on the right layer here, and edit, paste. All right, so there's my my basic info that I need there, and we'll go ahead and make that into the same kind of font style that we had for the rest of the stuff here. So we can go ahead and change our font styles. Actually, the easiest way to do it is just to go up to Type and Recent Font. It'll be the first thing that's listed there, and then let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Actually, quite a bit bigger. And I'm going to add a little bit of space here between these. A little bigger still. Something like that. Okay. Now, the thing is about that, though, is that I'm not sure that applying a drop shadow would be a good idea. It might be a little busy for this. So we might need to actually stack these. If I stack them, I can actually, if I stack this text, I can actually make it a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. So let's try that. Right there, like that. And then while it's still selected, change that a little bit. And just kind of eyeball it, something like that. Let's make it a little bit bigger still. There. All right. Now let's adjust the leading just a little bit. Now that's bigger. It's readable. Works pretty well. Kind of centering it underneath the psychedelic art thing. Let's go ahead and try the apply drop shadow and see what that does. Okay, now that's a little too far away. So let's undo that. We'll undo that, and I'm going to click on drop shadow so the dialog box comes up. So if I hit preview, it'll give us that. Now let's try and take it 0.5. Oh, that's too much. 0.2. That's still too much. Yeah, let's undo that. Yeah, it's just a little too much. Well, you know, that's not really a problem. If I want to actually have a drop shadow that is a little bit tighter, a little bit closer, but it's not taking, but it's got presets. Let me show you another way to make a drop shadow. I'm going to go ahead while this is selected. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste. Okay, so I've got this, and it says it twice, right? This first one here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, whoops, undo that. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, and then this, because it is pasted in front, there we go. So you see, you can kind of do your own if it's being, disagreeable. Okay, there. Let's zoom out a little bit more. Make sure we got all the stuff that we need. All right, so what I am going to do, the last thing I'm going to do here before I before I hit save, is I'm going to select all on active artboard, and I'm going to lock it. Lock selection. All right, and then finally save. All right, so there is a psychedelic museum card. Okay, done with a background using some gradients and some kind of wild stuff. Okay, this video has gotten pretty long. Okay. All right, so hopefully that explains some stuff to you guys. Have fun with this project. I really like it. I like doing this kind of artwork and doing stuff that's inspired by, psychedelic rock and all that kind of stuff. So I hope you're enjoying this. All right, I'll talk to you guys later.